Hello and welcome to the Meaning Project podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel A. Franz. As always, thank you for this opportunity to bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your day. As you can see, or maybe even hear, today I'm going solo yet again with all the work and responsibilities and travel inherent with the Viktor Frankl Meaning Academy. My good friend, Dr. Rabbi B, is away today, leaving me to host the Meaning Project podcast, as well as this will be reprinted for the Viktor Frankl Meaning Academy. And so, if you don't mind, I'd like to share some stories with you today. Maybe even go full grumpy old man, because that's just the way I've been feeling lately. You see, I grew up with Smokey the Bear. If you'll remember, some of you of a similar age, Smokey the Bear was this great big cartoon bear that would walk around on TV telling young kids only you can prevent forest fires. And you would think, growing up in that era and the prominence of Smokey the Bear, that there was a forest fire on a daily basis somewhere in a nearby community. Now, of course, that forest fire was never in my community because, well, I never experienced a forest fire until maybe just about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. It seems like we have a forest fire every couple of months somewhere in the United States or somewhere around the world. If you'll recall, there were the Australian forest fires of just a few years ago that were so prolific that smoke carried halfway around the world. And I feel like the states of Colorado and California are under constant fire watch. It appears some of you did not grow up with Smokey the Bear and learn how to prevent forest fires, or at least recently. Now, that's forest fire prevention. The other day, I was being a dutiful father and standing in the Meyer pharmacy line, waiting to pick up several prescriptions after my youngest daughter had her wisdom teeth removed. And I tell you what, I'm sure many of you have seen the videos of I would say evil parents videoing their children after sedation and tooth removal. I was sworn to secrecy not to take video, but I'll tell you what, that was the most expensive and possibly the most enjoyable comedy show I've ever seen. And fortunately for her, as a good father, there is no video evidence of it. However, what I did make evidence of was standing in line at the supermarket pharmacy, waiting behind several other people. I saw on the counter a stack of what we call in the substance abuse industry NARCAN, and not just a stack of NARCAN available for everybody's purchase, but also signs throughout the pharmacy that said, "We have NARCAN available. Save a life." Now, for those of you that don't know, Narcan is the nasal injection. I don't know if you'd call it a nasal injection, nasal spray meant to revive somebody who is in the throes of a heroin or opiate overdose, actually meant to nearly bring them back to life. Nowadays, you can bring back somebody from opiate heroin overdose with a nasal spray. Again, if I go grumpy old man, for those of you of a certain age along with me, you remember Pulp Fiction when Uma Thurman's character overdosed on heroin with John Travolta. He was in a panic and could not find that gigantic needle that had to be thrust into her heart, breaking her breastbone and rib cage in order to revive her from a heroin overdose. Today, we have Narcan. Any one of us can purchase with the idea of saving a life from somebody in the middle of a heroin overdose death. However, what in the world does Narcan and Smokey the Bear have to do in common? Prevention. Where is the prevention today? You know, as a substance abuse therapist, I appreciate and respect and advocate for the successful and healthy use of Narcan, and actually have to talk to many of our first responders who might be a little grizzled and angry about the idea of reviving a heroin addict death. But I think it's very important that we are able to do this and encourage life and change, right? My goodness, ideally, somebody that comes back from a heroin overdose um, decides to make some changes in their life, right? Life has meaning under all circumstances, even the most miserable. I would think near death of a heroin overdose would be a pretty miserable circumstance, encouraging somebody to change their life. But that Narcan is only good after somebody overdoses, after somebody has been using heroin for a while and goes beyond, well, goes beyond to the point of death. Where is the prevention? What about preventing people from using heroin? What about addressing the meaninglessness inherent in life today? Go and come back from Narcan and look at prevention. This is also consistent with, I believe I've shared a movie I've watched recently called What the Health. An interesting movie, of course, with any documentary, you have to, it's a great documentary on healthy food choices and eating, and does a lot of exposure of some large government service branches and who they're supported by. One of it is just, the idea that the American Cancer Association or some of these other causes are supported by some of the big business that actually creates health issues like obesity and high blood pressure. I think one of the things that stuck out to me was the idea that the government entity charged with creating our food pyramids and healthy eating recommendations are also supported by Kentucky Fried Chicken and Coca-Cola. That there's big business in there's profit to be made in selling a lot of these items, and that doesn't always mean our agencies are completely honest with us or give us the whole truth. I wouldn't say they're dishonest, but maybe they don't give us the whole truth. But the idea is from this movie, What the Health, I highly recommend on Netflix and see what you think about it. But today, we have drugs for darn near every ailment that harms you. Um, and my field, right? Anxiety and depression. If you feel anxious or depressed, we have a myriad of substances you can take to impact your neurotransmitters, your serotonin, your dopamine. The antidepressant class, kind of not as specific, just really works to shut the whole system down. Where I've said before, depression medication is more like a surgical knife and impacts just a few parts of the body, like our neurotransmitters. The benzodiazepines, Xanax and Valium and Ativan, just shut the whole system down. I mean, if you're anxious and you are taking a nap, a long nap, you're not going to be anxious anymore, but not as effective of maybe dealing with how about we prevent anxiety and depression? How about we deal with the source? Anxiety, much like guilt, can be a healthy, productive emotion. If you are anxious, address the source of your anxiety. If you are worried or stressed, address what is stressing you out. Relieve yourself, get the project done, do the work, paint the room, whatever it might be. Sometimes some of us are neurologically wired just a little tighter than others, and that can be a source of anxiety. But before you take a body and mind altering substance, why not meditate or exercise or do something to alleviate the anxiety instead? Let's prevent that. Depression. Some people truly are biologically depressed. Uh, Maybe estimates are anywhere from 3 to 7% of the population. However, Some estimates would tell you anywhere from 50 to 90% of the population is currently taking an antidepressant medication. That just doesn't seem right. But again, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but there's money to be made selling these medications. Why, why, why would we prevent it if there's an opportunity to profit from it? And I think that's one of the sad things in a lot of these ideas about prevention. We absolutely want to prevent forest fires because, well, they're damaging and they cost a lot of money. On the other hand, when it comes to selling some of these pills like antidepressants, anti-anxiety, um, cholesterol lowering medication, blood pressure lowering medication. We even have substances to help you if you feel like you're addicted to alcohol, not want to crave the alcohol. But what about doing the hard work of preventing people from getting there? How do you do that, Dr. Dan? Well, you know where I'm going with this, right? If we truly want to prevent people from continuing to grow in ever more unhealthier ways that require medications, then we have to start with meaning in the very beginning, right? And all of those different ways to find meaning. We can do that through creativity, experience, and attitude. You know, the big three I always talk about. Creativity, experience, and attitude. Go create something, paint something, learn. Not, we haven't gotten to learn yet. I'm like, play the guitar. That's why I thought about learning. I'm gonna learn, getting ready to actually learn how to play the guitar, right? I've talked about it before. I've just strummed along, but create something. Go do something at work, at your job, help somebody, do self-transcendent work, experience something. We were just talking about this in my men's substance abuse group this week. For many people, to come back from addiction and substance abuse means having interesting and exciting things planned and things to do that they look forward to, that they want to be doing, right? That take the time to grow and evolve and plan. And then you go experience this travel or whatever it might be. And then you have memories to talk about afterwards, right? Creativity and experience. And of course, our attitudes. I think that's really important when we talk about prevention. You know, too often our attitude is, well, I'll do this today and I'll deal with the consequences later, right? But as we know, life is short, life is transitory. From that transitoriness, we should find meaning in that we can recognize we're not going to be here forever. Take care of yourself now, right? Adopt an attitude of preventive health, of going and seeing your doctor on a regular basis, getting your blood test. It's interesting, kind of going along those lines. Uh, I kind of jokingly said this. It may have been the 100th person this year to tell me that they were struggling with a vitamin D deficiency. And that's why they were dealing with health issues and some just low mood and emotion. I was also reading in one of my wife's MS, multiple sclerosis bloggers, talking about how life in the northern latitudes, with the cold weather and the gray days, can be really unhealthy for all of us, and vitamin D can help. That's preventive. Save yourself some therapy bills next January and February and get yourself on, a steady 5,000 IUs of vitamin D at Christmas and do that until spring break and you'll feel a lot better. But if we change that attitude to a preventive attitude, preventive health, rather than all of these commercials that are ready to sell us an expensive prescription as soon as we're ill, what would happen if we prevented that illness and avoided those difficult times through that attitude of prevention? Other ways to find meaning, I already hinted at it: self-transcendent work, getting out there and helping others who maybe are struggling with these health effects. And then also One we've been talking about a lot recently, self-discovery. If you feel yourself trending towards these health issues, whether it's, your blood pressure is getting a little high, your cholesterol is getting a little high, maybe the number on the scale is getting a little high. There are things you can do about it before it gets out of control. But as I've said before, we live in a world that tries to rob us from meaning. What I mean by that is sometimes capitalism gone awry, capitalism gone out of control, seeks to profit. And I've been told this directly when it comes to marketing. We have to identify, when it comes to marketing, we are taught to identify a person's pain point and sell to it. That's the nature of marketing today. Identify a person's pain point. Now, look, if you're in pain already, you need something to help you feel better. Unfortunately, we've also come to realize there's profit to be made in people being ill so that we can sell to them. So, for you listening to the podcast, don't let yourself become ill. Adopt an attitude of prevention in your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your relationship health, and of course, your vocational and career health. What are some little things you can do on a daily basis to change that? One of the things I'm doing, more fruits and veggies, right? Less meat, less dairy, less cheese, which, man, I love me some cheese. But, just some general self-experimentation to see how things better. Things that are good for you. Laying off the burgers, eating more black beans, right? Different things like that. But there's plenty of research that tells us about how the world is speeding up. We're constantly pushed in this consumer-driven way, and it's making us ill. And my solution is to find meaning. And there are many ways to do it: creativity, experience, attitude, self-transcendence, and self-discovery. Learn about yourself. Find out why you're eating all those burgers and you don't want to change. Find out why maybe you're putting down 10 Mountain Dews a day instead of green tea or something along those lines. Do the work to understand yourself better and not just be sold to in a meaningless way. All right. So prevention. Let's work on prevention. Maybe between now and the next podcast you listen to, you think of a few things you want to change in your life. If you've recognized, guys, that you're getting a little pudgy around the middle, hey, I've been there, man. I'm not accusing anybody. Get an accountability group. Talk to some friends that are feeling the same way. Talk about the changes you can make. If you're struggling to get off the drink or to put away the marijuana or whatever substance you might use, maybe look into finding something more meaningful, more experiential to engage in. Look towards a trip or a vacation or an activity. There are different ways to go about this. But we do live in a time where we're marketed to in our misery, where we are sold to in our unhealthiness. And wouldn't it be an interesting place if these companies sold to prevention, if they sold to help keep us healthy, if there are ways to do that? Well, it starts with us taking care of ourselves. And I think maybe we change, how the economy works that way. But as always, thank you for this opportunity to bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your day. I hope you found it as meaningful as I did. To find out more about what I'm up to, you can go to danielafranz.com. That's DANIELAFRANZ.com. To find out more about what the good Rabbi Dr. B and I and our good friend Dr. Elise Cortez are up to at the Meeting Academy, I got to tell you, we just had a great meeting this week. Dr. Elise ran this one, and I haven't done this in a while. We had some Zoom breakout groups. It was really cool. The people I got to connect with one-on-one, and other people just reported really having a great time there. We'll be doing that again in a couple weeks. You can sign up at themeaningacademy.com. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for this opportunity to bring a little bit of mental health and meaning to your day. Take care.